And now, a special presentation of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod, called Kidsboro.
Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Andrew Sabo.
I'm Dylan Weaver.
Is this what we're doing this time?
Apparently, after 43 episodes of Novacom, why not switch it up?
That's fair. I mean, we're here. I've got a good connection with Kidsboro. I find I'm okay leading some sort of charge on this, even though you have all the information.
Oh boy, there's a lot of information.
There's a lot of information.
Yeah, buckle up, folks. This is part 1 of Kidsboro, episode 643.
Okay, I wasn't sure because it's not like an official album, if it would still count in the canonical episode tally.
So Kidsboro is a weird case. It aired on the radio, then was released on Truth Chronicles.
Yeah.
The Truth Chronicles is so after album 50, they released the Truth Chronicles.
Which album 50 was all the tying up loose ends, bringing back old characters, that sort of thing.
Yep. A lot of bring back old characters, usher out the old wit, bring in the new wit.
Yeah.
All of that stuff was album 50. And then they stopped. We got the Truth Chronicles album, and then we got the album Passages.
Yeah.
And then they came back with 51, which is kind of rebooty.
Interesting.
It's not like...
Which one's 51? Do you know what album that is?
Oh, gosh. Is it Take It Off the Top or something like that?
Take It From the Top?
Take It From the Top? Now I gotta look up.
I think A Little Off the Top's one of them.
Oh, is it A Little Off the Top? It's something... It is Take It From the Top.
Yeah.
So, yeah, which... That comes out in 2010. So, 2008... is Truth Chronicles, 2009's Passages, and then they come back in 2010 with like, hey, we've got an actual album again. We got our new wit. We're doing, I don't know, different. Like it's still Odyssey. We still have most of the same core characters, but it also introduces a whole new cast of kids.
Yeah, which is a big deal.
Yep.
And that's a good transition into the context, I would say.
Yeah, kind of. So in May of 2008, May 24th is when this episode airs. And then the next part 2 and 3 air the weeks after that. Additionally, the same day these release on the radio, they are released on the official Adventures in Odyssey podcast.
Oh.
That's a simultaneous release, and they're still up there now. That's the links we've included for people to go listen.
Yeah.
If that's a thing they're interested in. It's then in August, Focus on the Family is promoting this thing doing this project called the Truth Project, which is a curriculum that they're releasing about like Christian foundational stuff and like biblical worldview, all of that stuff. And for some reason, they decide to release a Odyssey album entitled The Truth Chronicles that kind of sort of ties into that, but it's weird because Truth Project is this like adult curriculum and Truth Chronicles is this thing for kids, and they kind of relate, but they're not even like, it's not like they're named the same thing or like it's...
Well, and I don't think that Kidsboro's really belongs on the Truth Chronicles at all.
No.
As far as how it relates to the other episodes.
I agree. The rest of the Truth Chronicles is way more like...
object lesson kind of story, like built around a moral.
Yeah, I mean, Kidsboro is pretty moral driven as well, but it does feel like the odd man out on the Truth Chronicles.
Yeah, and viewed in the light of absolute truth, where it's like there's the episode where they talk about evolution and, you know, like who's in charge of all this and all this stuff, and then, you know, there's a 3-parter with kids having their own town where it's like, wait, what?
Yeah, and in the same way, the Kidsboro 3-parter are the only episodes off of the Truth Chronicles that ever aired on the radio.
Wow. That's weird.
So the Truth Chronicles is the first time they release episodes without having aired them first.
Yeah.
And then those episodes have not aired subsequently.
Really?
Kidsboro aired beforehand and has continued to air over the years.
Yeah.
But they have never done anything with the other episodes. They only exist on that album.
I wonder if they got a lot of negative feedback about that album.
I really don't know. It seems like they were coming at it from a different direction of like...
It seemed very theologically driven.
Yeah.
More so than a lot of Odyssey.
Right. Odyssey doesn't dabble too much in theology.
Yeah.
And so that definitely feels like, oh, these are our like theology episodes, and then we're also throwing in this Kidsboro thing because it exists after album 50.
Yeah.
Before album 51, which is kind of rebooty, so it's like, well, we want to put this out there on an album and not just like it was initially released as a like on a single CD. You could buy it. It came with it cost $3 and then came with a $3 coupon for the Truth Chronicles.
Interesting.
As like a promotion for that.
Yeah.
And so but the main thing with Kidsboro is that it was the reason these episodes were created were to launch a book series.
Mm-hmm.
So Marshall Younger, who writes and directs all 3 of these episodes, had in 2000 released a book called The Great Kidsboro Takeover, which was published by Focus on the Family, but not part of the Odyssey world.
It wasn't in the universe?
Not at all.
Okay.
And that was supposed to be the launching off point for this series that he was writing.
Yeah.
And then for either it didn't sell well, he got caught up with Odyssey, a combination of things, whatever.
Yeah.
That book was not continued.
Well, I think Odyssey really blew up around that time, as far as like that was like when Novacom kicked off and stuff like that.
Yeah, like middle of Novacom stuff. Yeah. And so what ends up happening is he's given the opportunity to, do Kidsboro. Refocus approaches him about making it in more of like an Odyssey, like tying it into Odyssey.
Yeah.
Because that becomes a theme with the album after Truth Chronicles Passages is a similar thing.
Yeah, where it's...
I think that's Paul McCusker, though, not Marshall Younger, but it's it is a Narnia kind of story, but it is grounded in the world of Odyssey because like,
I don't know if I ever listened to Passages.
That's the thing that like... Yeah,
that's what makes it relevant.
Right. And like Last Chance Detectives does the exact same thing where it's like, this is an audio drama that Focus on the Family's doing. It's not really Christian. It's supposed to have a broader appeal, but it's still like Jason's going to show up so we can like tie it into that universe because that's that's the jumping on point.
Yeah. That'll be a big selling point for their existing audience.
Right. So they do that a lot. And so with this relaunch of Kidsboro, the first of the new Kidsboro books comes out at the beginning of May, and then this episode airs towards the end of May. Which is weird because this is chronologically beforehand. Because this chronicles the formation of Kidsboro.
And Kidsboro, the book,
right,
is once the town's already built.
Yep. And the first book in the relaunch series is just like a rewrite of the original book released in 2000. But now like we're going to do it with
wit and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to do it set in Odyssey. Although like it's barely.
Yeah, that's we'll get into it as far as how it ties into the overall universe. Yeah. Because it's something that so, like, the Truth Chronicles was actually one of the last albums I ever got of Odyssey. I got it for Christmas one year. I was probably in 6th or 7th grade when I got it. So it had been out for a couple years, but I hadn't heard any of them.
Because they didn't air on the radio.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And And so I really got into it. I listened to it like over and over again. I loved the Kidsboro episodes. I thought they were so cool. But there is a huge disconnect where it's like, this is supposed to be in the Wits, like this is supposed to be in the Odyssey universe, and yet like after the Truth Chronicles, like album 51 and on, like Kidsboro is mentioned offhand like twice.
Yeah, and
maybe it's more.
Well, not really. And a couple of the characters do recur, which we'll hit on when I go through character breakdown. But yeah, so they released throughout the year of 2008. It was like May, June, July, August. Every month they released one of these Kidsboro books.
Yeah.
And then that was it. It was just 4 books that were put out. And then 3 years later in 2011, they released a collection of all 4 books as one book. And that's been it for Kidsboro. Like, it seems like it was maybe gonna, like, I don't know. I wonder if it was supposed to take off more, but...
yeah, I think it's so funny how how Focus on the Family has such a good thing with Adventures in Odyssey, and yet they keep trying to, like, branch out and build something else despite the fact that nothing has ever worked in the same way. And it's like Last Chance Detective things, like, did they put out 3 albums?
They did. Yeah.
That's it? Like, compared to, like, it died after 3. Kidsboro didn't do well. It's not like Passages is the best reviewed Adventures in Odyssey album. Like,
right.
They have so many cool different ideas that they do within the universe. I am surprised that they try to, like, replicate it or something like that when it's so clear that they've struck gold in a unique way.
But on the other hand, none of the stuff they do ever cheapens Odyssey or makes it worse. So it's like, if one of those things were to take on, they'd be like, great, we now have 2 horses instead of 1.
Yeah.
So like, I get it from that perspective, but it is funny how especially during this, like, 2000 to 2010, it seems like is the period where they're trying to launch all of this and, like, try and kind of become some sort of, like, empire, like, have their hands in a bunch of different bowls and that sort of thing, and they end up not really, like, they manage to get a couple other audio dramas. They do a really good audio adaptation of the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal, but, like, that's kind of it.
You know what it reminds me of? The I don't know, have you seen much Bob's Burgers?
I have not.
Okay, well, there's a bit in Bob's Burgers where, like, he obviously owns a burger shop, and he has, like, a burger of the day, which is some, like, clever, like, punny name, and it's a unique, like, daily special burger. Like, one of them's the Baby Won't You Chive My Car burger, and it's got chives on it and whatever.
Right.
And nobody ever orders these burgers, and yet they keep putting it out because it's something different and new, and, like, it should. But nobody has ever ordered one of them.
That's funny.
And so it kind of feels like that, where it's like, I get that, there's a chance that it could work and it could be great. It's just, it does feel like they're throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and it's not sticking.
Yeah, well, like, and like we like to talk about with the, because all of this stuff is available on the Odyssey Adventure Club, which we
rest in peace
are blacklisted from subscribing to.
I guess.
But
I'm due for another attempt.
But it seems like that would be a great way to do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we'll continue to air Odyssey on the air, and then we'll put spin-offs on our service that you can pay extra for. But instead, they end up just doing Odyssey on both, and it's, like, kind of weird.
Yeah. They have, like, some that doesn't air or doesn't air. And they...
Yeah. Stuff's released on the OA Club first, but then there's also some stuff that will never air from the OA Club. How much is the OA Club? I think it's like $10 a month.
Man, that is totally worth it.
Yeah.
Dang it, I need to get that.
But
mostly just because I really want to listen to New Odyssey. And, like, I cannot bring myself to listen to all the freaking Focus on the Family ads that are on the, like if I listen to Wits End on the radio or something.
Oh, yeah.
Which, oh my gosh, if they're on the freaking OA club, please tell me, because that will make me upset.
Oh, if the ads are on the... Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, we good to hit on some characters then?
I believe so.
Okay, because we've got...
Is there a promo for this?
There is a promo. You want to do the promo now and then hit on characters?
Sure.
That seems... I don't know. Maybe promo into plot?
Yeah, I think we do promo into plot normally.
I think we typically do.
We forget.
Yeah, it's fine. So we obviously have Paul Hurlinger back as Wit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, album 50 is kind of our send-off to Paul Hurlinger as Wit. The Truth Chronicles are actually like the last episodes he records that are released. And then, so he records those. Those come out in 2010. He then retires. Andrei Stotka takes over in 2009. I think Passages is the first Stotka stuff that he's in, and then he's like full-blown Wit after that. So
it's so funny how they changed the art style of Wit in the album covers with the different actors.
Yeah.
I find that very amusing.
I do too. And because they use the changing of Wits as kind of an excuse to reboot the series in some way or another.
Yeah.
Like it's a fresh start with Hal Smith. When we transitioned out of him, it was more abrupt because that wasn't expected.
Yeah.
But with Hurlinger, they're planning on it, and so it's able to be like this much smoother transition. And they are close up storylines and then start new ones with new art, gray-haired Wit instead of white-haired Wit. Like it's just... Yeah, it's a different feel for 51.
Yeah, and different... I think it's a whole different art style, too, I feel like, starting after that.
Yeah, it definitely has that feel. So the only Odyssey characters in this episode, like people we get other times, are Wit and Holstein. Wit, Holstein, and Captain Quinn. The police officer.
And Mayor Margaret Fay is mentioned, but she's not actually in it.
Yeah. The Ken Mars is the voice of both Holstein and Quinn.
And you can kind of tell.
Yeah. Well, and he's been with the show for a really long time. Like, I think Holstein's first in, like...
When Katrina comes in, because Katrina works for
Holstein's but I think it might even be before that. Like, they're...
Big books, little books.
But yeah, he's a recurring character, and they were in, like... He was in albums in episodes in like the 200s, like going like way back.
Wow.
Because the Jesus Cloth is the first Captain Quinn episode.
Yeah.
And then he's back in Perfect Witness and Sounds Like a Mystery and this, and and Holstein shows up and stuff too, all throughout. But anyways, the voice actor for those is Kenneth Mars.
Okay.
And he's got a ton of IMDb credits.
Yeah.
He has since passed, but up until that, 227 credits on IMDb.
Anything of note?
He was Triton in The Little Mermaid.
Oh.
And related.
That makes sense.
Movies.
I can hear it. Yeah.
And Grandpa Longneck in The Land Before Time.
Really? Yo, I totally hear it now.
As soon as I read that, I was like, oh, of course.
Crossover with like were they fist bumping because freaking Will Ryan was Petrie?
Yeah.
Like
no, it seems like this. It seems like a lot of these actors kind of run in similar circles, which is probably buddies. How they end up here. He also had a long recurring role in Malcolm in the Middle as Otto Mancusser, which is not a show I'm familiar with, but I was like, there was enough episodes and it's a well-known enough show that I was like, I'll mention it.
Yeah.
And then we have 5 new characters in this episode. So we start out our like audience surrogate is Ryan Cummings. He's the guy we're following. He narrates these episodes.
Kind of like a new Jimmy Barkley. Almost.
Yeah, a little bit. I like him a lot. He's voiced by Adam Wiley, and Ryan's one of the... There's a couple characters that we'll hit on that continue past this point.
Yeah, past
and Ryan's
Kidsboro.
one of those. He's been in 10 episodes, which isn't a ton.
But it's more than the other
Right,
ones.
exactly. There's only
Is he
one...
the Holy Hoopster?
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, there's one other character who ends up in more than him, but it's close.
Yeah.
This is a returning actor for Odyssey. He voiced Mike Fowler in The Last Chance Detectives.
Okay.
Which was not a thing I knew, but makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I don't remember that. But...
And he's also he's been around a lot doing animation work and whatnot. He was he voiced Dennis in Dennis the Menace for the 90s cartoon.
Interesting.
And played Brainiac 5 in the Legion of Superheroes. And one that you will appreciate, because I know I do. He is the actor who played Brad in Gilmore Girls.
Really?
Yeah, Brad Langford of Chilton.
Yeah, Chilton.
Yeah,
that's him.
That's him.
That's
so if you want to see this guy
Ryan
on screen,
Cummings?
yep,
Wow.
And it's
I knew he was a hunk. That man.
Oh man, and Brad's just such a great bit character in that show.
Yeah, he is.
He's just a solid punchline.
Who is he? Oh my gosh, what's her name?
Paris.
Yeah, Paris. Yeah,
he's constantly making fun of
just
him,
ripping on Brad.
Yeah. So that's.
I mean, I'm in season 3, and I know who Brad is.
That's Ryan Cummings.
I have so much more Gilmore Girls to watch.
We also have Alice Funderbank, who is the wannabe cop. So Ryan's the mayor kid, Alice is the cop kid, voiced by Ashley Prather, who hasn't really done much aside from voicing both Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana in a Hannah Montana video game.
Yo, I have that video game, though.
The Spotlight World Tour?
Yes, I do. I had it on the Wii.
There you go.
My parents got it for my sister. She was too young to play it, so I did.
There you go. Perfect.
It was worse Just Dance, but you could dress them up, and that was fun. I'm not kidding, I promise.
And then we have another person I'm very excited to talk about, Jill Segler. Easily my favorite character from these episodes. Although I like Ryan a lot.
Yeah, Ryan's good.
But Jill's cool. She's the reporter.
Yeah, she's... Dale Jacobs' daughter. What's her name?
What? Oh, Robin.
Yeah.
This is like our new Robin.
Yeah, because they're both reporters.
Yeah. No, that's fair. She's voiced by Kelly Stables. And ends up appearing in 4 other of the episodes on the Truth Chronicles, but that's it. But then they bring Kelly Stables back to play Olivia Parker when they recast her. So Hope Levy does Olivia Parker for the first album, and then after that they bring Kelly Stables back in to play her. And Kelly Stables is an actress I have some connection to.
You met her?
No. But she just this past season of Young Justice voiced Arrowette.
Really?
Which fun connection because of my Whelmed connection. She also
plug. Go listen to Whelmed.
She also appeared on
If you're here from Whelmed, thank you.
She was on a series I did not watch, but everyone knows the name of, called 2.5 Men. She played a recurring character called Melissa.
Yep.
And most excitingly for me, she plays Kelly on Superstore.
Oh,
interesting. Show I love.
That is a good show. I haven't seen anything past the first season, but I do really enjoy Superstore.
Yeah. So that was just fun for me.
Is it still airing?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, its 5th season comes out this fall.
I mean, that's fair. With the exception of This Is Us, I just feel like all other shows die within 2 seasons.
No, I mean that's probably fair. And then the next kid we're introduced, kind of the last of this core group, is Nelson Swanson.
Mm-hmm. Not related to Ron, sadly.
And he is voiced by actress Georgina Cordova. who hasn't done anything on the IMDb.
Is Georgina a female?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is another example of a child dude being voiced by a girl.
Yeah. And
I couldn't bring myself to say it.
and so Nelson, out of all these characters, is the one who carries on the most. He's been in 13 episodes at this point, with both him and Ryan being in episodes in like the 800s, like recent episodes.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah. And
then I guess the final of the kid characters here, we have Nelson's the inventor kid, and then Pete, who is the treasurer. He's voiced by Marcus Toji, and Marcus Toji is a recurring character on the Amazon show Patriot, which I haven't seen, but he's got like a decent role on that apparently. He also voiced Wing in The Legend of Korra.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What a great show. I love The Legend of Korra.
And
so there's an Avatar podcast out there. I'm sure there is.
Oh, there definitely is.
I'll make one.
Yeah. And so Pete is in these 2 episodes, and then he's back in 2 more episodes, but with a different voice actor. When he comes back, he's voiced by Robin Knight, who we previously covered because she is the voice of Seth. So yeah, that's our cast for the episode. There's also at the beginning portion of this episode, we have Chuck and the town secretary, but we do not have voice actors for either of those, which is a shame because I like Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck and the secretary was nice.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, I think now that we've
covered promo,
a half hour on all the background of this episode.
No, that's good though. I mean, it establishes a lot of it, and like we've established a lot of their character traits too. So, because the plot is very, very foundational this episode.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, it's really setting the groundwork. So I'm gonna go ahead and roll the promo.
On the next special edition of Adventures in Odyssey, what if kids ruled the world?
Kidsboro. We have our own town.
How would it work?
No adults allowed, except by permission.
How would things be different?
We're kids. We're in charge. Deal with it. That sounds a little angry.
Welcome to Kidsboro, the only town run completely by kids. On the next Adventures in Odyssey.
That is a really long tail end. That is so long. Yeah. Also, the music sounds like the music from The Sims. That's what it sounds like.
This is it's not there's a clip there from the next episode. But
yeah, I was gonna say, it sounds a little angry. I'm pretty sure that's from the second episode.
Wow. Now they're talking about it as the only town run by kids, but so there was a show that I watched, just found out it aired in 2007, so a year before this, and now I'm like, oh, were they trying to bank on that? But it was a show called Kid Nation on CBS. There was a reality show in which kids ran a town.
Wow.
And it included them setting up government and trying to get on without adult supervision. And it only lasted for 13 episodes, 1 season, before being canceled by CBS. But
I imagine for safety precautions or something like that.
But that was, that's something I watched. I don't think I watched every episode, but like I remember when that was airing, and I remember watching that show.
It was that was definitely a thing though for a while there, like the whole "what if kids ruled the world" thing. Like,
I'm never sure if it was just because I was that age, or like where that was like exciting to me, or if it was like that era just like had a spike in that. But like that was a thing I thought of a ton.
Oh yeah,
like, it was,
me too.
It was. It was always the thing of like, you know, when we were like doing stuff with friends, like we try and create like our own civilization. Like, hey, like we're gonna go out into the woods and we're all gonna have our own forts.
Yep.
And those forts are gonna trade with each other and like that sort of thing. Like for whatever reason, that was just like a decent part of my childhood.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. But even beyond that, I feel like in mainstream media, like there's a lot of like kid-centric television revolving around kids being in charge. And stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, like Phineas and Ferb is that. And like other things along.
Or even
those
like
lines.
something like Fetch or something like that.
Yeah,
like kind of an absentee of really any parental guardian, like greater power.
Yeah.
Which I guess is probably a normal thing for kids. But
I was gonna say I think that's a lot of children's television.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing for Odyssey to try and tackle, and they do it in a way that I think is pretty very interesting.
Yeah.
So this starts out with 2 different intros depending on which version you're listening to. If you're listening to it on the Truth Chronicles album, it's Chris saying like, and now an episode of the Truth Chronicles or something.
Yeah.
And then if you're listening on the podcast and I assume the radio, it's like a special presentation of Kidsboro.
Yeah.
And that's the one we had Nathan Ape for this. But I really like the score of this episode, and I like Ryan like as the narrator. It's just
it
a fun
feels
thing.
very old school Odyssey.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Is the narrator episodes that are specifically from one character's point of view as well are such
nostalgic.
like old Odyssey. And a lot of this episode feels kind of like, you know, an extension of like Wonderworld or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's like the modernized version of that with, you know, hijinks and whatnot. Like I like it a lot.
I really enjoy the one character. Like I think the most memorable Odyssey episodes for me are ones that have only one narrator, just because I feel like it incites itself. Alex Jefferson does a couple of these.
Trent's got a few.
Called On in Class was one of them.
That's a Trent one.
Yeah,
right?
and then Alex Jefferson has Snow Day.
Oh, right,
which is
of
the
course.
one where he's got to go to his grandma's house and he's got cookies.
Yeah,
from his
macadamia
mom.
nut cookies.
Nuts! I'm allergic to nuts. All these work for nothing. Make me itch.
So
I'm on a tangent, but that episode is amazing.
So the episode starts out with this premise of we're seeing cutscenes from a bunch of different kids across town at career day.
Yeah.
It
is established they're middle schoolers.
Yes.
Which is worth noting, because these are new kids and we don't know how old they are, and they all sound very old.
Yeah, that is a good point to bring up. I mean, we kind of hit it on the fact that like none of them show up after this, but all of these kids were created for this.
Yeah.
Like even the ones that keep going after, this is their origin. And they're all like all of their names and whatnot are from the original 2000 book.
Oh.
So all these characters were created 8 years before this episode came out.
And poorly sold.
Yes. And so, so we start out with Ryan at a legal office. He's trying to, he's supposed to be shadowing Mayor Margaret Fay for his career day. And she's out and about doing who knows what. And so he ends up going to a zoning meeting with a guy named Chuck.
Yeah. And then somebody falls asleep while they're talking.
Yeah, well, he said the guy almost falls asleep while talking.
It's so boring and all that. And then we go to Alice.
Yeah.
Alice Thunderberg? What's her last name?
Alice Funderbank.
Funder?
Funder.
Wow, that is unfortunate. Alice, I could have I have Alice Thunderberg, because
nope.
Whatever.
Funderbank.
I'm deaf. Alice Funderbank, she's with the...
That's bad for an audio show.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That explains a lot, actually.
She's with Captain Quinn.
At the police station. and she's like super eager and excited, and she sees somebody jaywalking, and she presumably jumps out of the car, runs across traffic, and tackles him.
Yeah. It sounds like she tackles him there. They later say she slams him up against a wall.
Yeah.
Either way.
Could be both. What the heck?
Alice is an interesting character.
Is actually terrifying, yeah.
Yeah, she's before she tackles the jaywalker, she's going off about why she doesn't get to have a gun.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. They're giving them, and
there are a lot of jokes about her and guns that make me a little bit
uncomfortable.
It doesn't.
Well, especially juxtaposed in the idea of being a police officer. I'm like,
yeah,
hey.
There's a
this
lot
was before Trayvon Martin, wasn't it?
a lot of her police related stuff. Just her as a character plays differently today than I think it did at the time.
Yeah.
And definitely different than I read it as a kid.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The one thing I will say though is I love that this is a female character. Mm-hmm. I love that Odyssey was like, we're not gonna make this a boy who's crazy about guns and beating people up. This is gonna be a girl who can kick the butt of every kid in town, and they know it.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Yeah,
that does make me
that
happy.
Part of it is really fun, and almost in my mind excuses it a little bit, because there's part of me of just it's not the male stereotype, so we're fine.
Yeah.
But
we don't know for a fact she's a bad cop.
It's still got problems, but it
does redeem it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we have Jill at Holstein's Books. She's from the Odyssey Owl. She's doing a report on banned books.
Yep.
And this is when we get a delightful conversation with Sir Holstein himself, talking about all the books that he has. And she's like, you have you've got a section of banned books. What are your personal thoughts on censorship? And then he goes off and talks about all the different types of musical books he has, and talks about wanting the world to sing in perfect harpenspiel, harfenspiel,
a word that means harpist.
Yep,
not harmony.
Nope. And then it makes him want to sing at the top of his lederhosen,
which are pants.
Yes,
not lungs.
Yeah.
Holstein's just a joke machine, so I allow it.
Oh, no, it's great. I love him. He's so funny. His voice is amazing. Anything he says is funny. He's like the Snoop Dogg of Odyssey. He could say anything, and it's just automatically enjoyable.
That's hilarious. Yeah, so Holstein's been around for a while, and I like this. But yeah, the whole thing is that she's there to write a report about banned books,
censored books,
and he is talking about books about bands.
Yep. And there's a book about written it contains, it's what is it, the unauthorized autobiography of a toaster strudel inventor or something like that, or an author who writes about strudel.
Yeah, he's a joke machine. I'm good with
what?
And then and so then we cut back to Wits End, where they're all kind of regrouping after all this disastrous day.
Except for Nelson.
Yeah.
Nelson had a great day.
Yeah, Nelson did career day at Wits End. Mm-hmm. He helped on a solar-powered air conditioner, which is nuts.
Yeah, that would take a lot of power, but actually, I feel like it should exist.
I mean, that would revolutionize some things.
Yeah, it would. Although I feel like it could be potentially counterintuitive.
Turning heat into cold seems
magic.
Yeah, but
I mean, it's electricity. If solar panels can power anything electrical.
Correct. So yes, I like it.
I like it a lot.
And so they're just kind of moaning about all the stuff they're doing, and Nelson's like, well, I actually had a good day.
Yeah.
And at one point, man, I forget. There's some like this episode has some great like jokes.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good jokes in there.
But it kind of revolves around Ryan. In addition to everyone just kind of being bummed, Ryan is like mad because like this was supposed to be their chance to like see like what they could do as an adult. Like he wants.
Well,
he
there
was
a lot
there for like political stuff, and like he was like this could be the like. We get to see role models in action. Like, this is
something that you aspire so much. That's so fantasy that is so on a pedestal could become a reality. And he talks about like stories of people holding hoses at out of control house fires, like with firefighters. And he's like, I no longer believe any of the old tales, which is dramatic, but whatever.
I like it.
Yeah, it's good, and it symbolizes kind of where he's at in the whole. How disappointed he is with everything.
And
that's when Wit cuts in, right?
Yeah. Wit jumps in on it, and is kind of like, hey, like I've got an idea. You guys finish up school in a couple weeks, right? Yeah. Meet me back here. I'm gonna show you Kidsboro. He's like, his pitch is kind of like, what if there was like a place where you guys could all like, do your own thing, do the things you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
He mentions, they don't know. She's like, I can be a reporter, and he's like, yeah, and Ryan's like, I can be in government, and they're like, yeah, and. Alice wants a gun, and he's like, no.
Nelson wants to do experiments on live subjects. And it's like, no. And then he goes, oh, rats. And he's like, no rats.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is interesting is, like, this episode has the same thing that, like, any episodes about jobs when your kids have in, like, any medium, which is, like, there are like 3 jobs.
Yeah.
And all these kids just like have the perfect interests where this works. Whereas like I, 1, had no idea what I wanted to do at that age. And 2, like I now fix computers. That doesn't really work in Kidsboro.
No, not at all.
Whereas like Nurse Andrew, you maybe could have gotten away with that in Kidsboro.
When I was in 7th grade, I'm pretty sure I wanted to be an architect. Which might have worked.
Yeah.
But my only experience of building anything was the Pinewood Derby for Cub Scouts and Minecraft. So that was it. Would have been very unhelpful.
But yeah, it's like you can be in government. You can be a police officer. You can be a
treasurer,
a writer. You can be a medical person. Those are like your options. So I like that they
I like it too, though.
Follow that.
It's good.
Yeah, it's it's a trope, but it's not one that we hate.
Yeah, it works well enough.
And so Ryan's kind of monologuing again with his narration. He's just talking about so we waited for a couple weeks till school.
2 weeks. It's worth noting that Wit builds a dozen clubhouses with some help, admittedly.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks.
Yeah, but they're like I imagine they are extremely minimal.
Oh yeah.
And like, what else is he?
Well, he calls them clubhouses, and he says, "Oh, they're more like miniature houses." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, but like I can't imagine. Like I don't. In my mind, they do not have power.
No.
Or anything like that.
In my head, they're like mini sheds.
Yes. Yeah. They're sheds with windows.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I guess Eugene helps him.
I guess he did it. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I mean, who knows?
That's a shed a day.
He could hide because he got to sleep on Sundays. But I mean, he could have hired someone too.
That's fair.
Wit's got money.
He does. He's infinite money, actually.
But yeah, so they finally get there. And Wit kind of shows them around. He's like, "Look, there are a dozen buildings and a meeting hall that's open air. You guys run the town."
Yeah.
And it's that clip that you hear in the promo of like
no adults allowed, of course, unless by permission, of course, or something.
Yeah.
And they're like, whoa, okay. And so that's when Whit kind of pulls out of the situation and leaves them to do their thing.
Yeah. After once again telling Alice, no guns, no handcuff.
Yep.
You're on your own. Yeah. So then they're trying to figure out like what they do now.
Mm-hmm. And there's a couple like kind of like cut back scenes where they're meeting in the hall and they're talking about like, we need, well, what should we do first? We should establish a government. And they're like, do we even need a government? Like, what's the purpose of government? Like, are we supposed to make laws or whatever? And so Ryan goes and then talks to Whit, and he's like, wait, what's the purpose of government?
After he's been nominated as mayor by Jill.
It'd be worth noticing.
Yeah, worth noting that.
Yeah.
That happens. And then, because what happens before they even go to Whit, Ryan becomes mayor, and then they are trying to decide on like how they're going to pass decisions.
Yeah,
and they end up
voting on.
There's the great quote of I think we just voted not to vote on voting.
Yeah,
so does it count?
Yeah. And like back to Mr. Whitaker.
Yep.
And then they leave, and Ryan goes and talks to him about it, and we get.
And it's the classic thing of Whit like. Ryan asks Whit a question.
And then Whit responds with the question.
Right. And rather than just giving them the answer or telling them what to do, Whit is like, well, like, why is this a thing you need? Like, think about this, like, on a deeper level. And then proceeds to tell them
the answer. Yeah. Yeah, he basically then goes, well, with the Bible and common sense as your guide, the government's job is to make laws and what does it say? Promote what is good and punish what is evil.
Yep.
And
from Romans.
There you go. So he kind of shoves him back, and
it's like, hey, you should base this in the Bible. That's what the founding fathers did. Did
they?
I don't know. I don't know enough about that, but it's the second time founding fathers are mentioned in this episode.
Yeah.
And it is a thing throughout, like. When
Odyssey's redness is showing.
When Odyssey isn't doing Bible stuff, they're doing America stuff.
Yeah. Well, they do a lot of American history stuff, but it's very much like Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, founding father stuff. Like, I think the most recent American history one they do is World War One.
Okay.
I think that's Sergeant York.
Oh,
that's on the deep end, which that is an excellent 4-parter.
Okay,
worth
I was
listening
like,
to.
That's more recent stuff, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think that's the most recent. Like, there's none where they like go back into the 60s or something. Like,
no, but there is the hippie episode from like early on. Where Bart Rathbone puts on is like putting on a festival to celebrate the 60s, and Whit is like mad because he doesn't like the 60s. There's also
that's an episode worth covering.
There's also a it's a character from Whit's past. There's some Vietnam connection at one point.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the guy who tries to desert to Canada.
Yes.
He's related to the Whitakers in some way.
Yes.
His name's like Plato or something.
Yeah, he's got a fancy accent.
By. Yeah.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Pearl
like,
Harbor episode.
Okay.
So I guess I was wrong. There is some.
But yeah,
more
Odyssey likes to delve into American history and stuff when they're not doing Bible stuff. Anyways, the all that to say, the founding fathers thing just kind of amused me that it's dropped twice in this episode because the founding fathers, they made America Christian, and we need to do that again.
And of course they had it all figured out 300 years ago.
Yeah, and it all 100% applies to what is going on now. Mm-hmm. They foresaw everything because God ordained exactly what is in the Constitution.
Manifest destiny.
Great stuff.
Christian nationalism never hurt anybody. All right. Come at me on Twitter. at Andrew Sabo.
Andrew _Sabo.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Anyway, point is, we're moving on.
Yeah.
And so they establish the purpose of government. they're going to make laws, and then Pete kind of stumbles into the woods on his bike. So this is where we get introduced to Pete.
Yep. No last name.
Nope. No last name at all.
Like Madonna, just Pete.
Yep. Exactly. Pete is basically Madonna.
I like that. That's the one I went for when there are so many other great one-name people.
Rihanna.
Beyonce.
I feel
No, you can't just repeat me.
Who has a...
Beyonce does have a last name, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is, dumb tangent. Alice is trying to arrest Pete for biking in the Kidsboro city limits.
But he doesn't have laws to enforce, so Correct. They go back and make bike laws about safe transportation. Oh, and that's when Ryan goes back to Whit, because they're like, well, I don't think that bikes are evil. Like, I actually like bikes. And Whit's like, well, you got to use common sense and whatever and make laws. And then they're like, okay, well, since we don't have traffic laws in place and we don't have, really any way of, like regulating this, we should have no bikes within the city limits. And so Pete comes back the next day on his bike and he's like, I'm sorry, I had to go home. I had to go home and eat dinner. I waited around for 20 minutes, and now Alice has a law. She writes him a ticket, and he's like, well, how do I pay for this ticket? Like, does Kidsboro even have a system of currency?
Yep.
And then they don't have a system of currency.
They do not. And so and I like this. This continues throughout the series, but it's very much them, like, making things up as they go along. But, like, when situations arise, then they're like, oh shoot, we need how do we do this? Which is it's fun.
Well, it's like, I think it's symbolic of like kids' understanding of the world and how they know that a lot of things exist, but they don't quite fully appreciate how many cogs are moving at once to make something like a town work.
And so they end up deciding like, oh, well, like we need to make currency. How are we going to do that? Nelson wants to use seashells. They all shoot that down and kind of make fun of him for it. Doesn't feel great.
Nope.
And then Pete jumps in and is like, hey, like I've got a color printer and like my dad's got a good graphics program. Like I can make up the currency.
I'll be the treasurer.
Right. Can you guys make me Secretary of the Treasury? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. Ryan doesn't want his face on the money.
Yeah, they offer to have Ryan's face on the money. I think Nelson brings it up.
Yeah,
and then they shoot it down because he hasn't done anything.
He hasn't crossed the Delaware yet,
or won a war. And then
and so they're then talking about, well, like how's this money gonna work? Like we're just gonna pay for ourselves
in taxes,
right?
Because then taxes comes up and it's like, are taxes biblical? And then they say, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And he's like, all right, taxes are biblical, and
right?
Like, yeah, that's okay.
Yep.
Moving on.
Just oversimplify everything. Yeah. They're kids. We're kids. Fine. And so, and then he kind of goes to Whit and he's like, well, like, how is this going to work? Like, and Whit's like, well, like, invite your friends.
Yeah.
And there's a line, in which I think it's Ryan who says it, where he says, let the immigration begin.
Yeah.
Which, like, whoop, whoop. But also, you want to rethink that one, Focus.
Yeah, that's very topical and not very on brand.
No, that is not on brand at all. But
especially at that time, that was, oh boy.
But yeah, it's
funny. And to give us your weak and your huddled masses, and wasn't there a whole bit in the news about them wanting to change the wording on the Statue of Liberty?
What?
There was something in the news about it. Oh. Some senator said something.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Very topical. It's very topical.
It's really good.
So then tons of people come.
Yep. They start building a ton more houses. And kind of the catalyst for this was like, well, we're just making money to pay taxes so that we can pay ourselves. Like, so we need that's a citizens. Problem.
Yeah.
And so so they get citizens
because they have a bunch of friends that want to come.
Yep. And some of the buildings are houses and some are businesses. And so Ryan ends up in a zoning meeting discussing that.
And somebody says a zone. He's like, hold up. Am I in a zoning meeting?
I just realized I created my own zoning meeting.
Yeah.
Which is...
And then it quickly cuts right away from that. And this whole like kind of transition scene is really laced with excellent music. I know we've talked about it, but I love the music in this 3-parter. I think it's so good.
Yeah.
And then
we get our things are finally going.
Yeah.
So we need to create what will be the mystery for the show, or like what's gonna carry through.
What's the plot?
Exactly. And so there's a smell coming from Nelson's house. And after much discussion and Alice retrieving a gas mask that she has.
Oh, because she has a gas mask because she's building a bomb shelter. And then she's like, what do you have in your bomb shelter? Canned goods. And Ryan's like, oh. Like, that's the first time he's actually audibly concerned for her.
It's really funny. And so Nelson ends up going into the house holding his nose and is able to find a stink bomb where someone dug under his wall and threw a stink bomb in. And that's what smelled up the whole place.
Yeah.
And so that's where it ends.
Yeah, that's
with
where
the
it goes
tension
out.
being who's stinking up.
We missed
Kidsboro.
the premise of that is Ryan and Nelson talking about the fact that his business isn't doing well.
Oh, yeah.
He hasn't sold a single automatic rake.
Yeah.
And, which I'm interested in automatic rake.
Yes.
And he's like, you probably won't sell any till October. And
but
Nelson's very visibly frustrated.
Right. Yes. That is a good point to bring up, that Nelson's, bummed that everyone else's jobs are going really well. Yeah. And Alice is getting a jail cell. Yeah. Made out of like twigs.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff is happening for everyone else, but like what's his role in all this? Yeah. I also want to know, and I'm sure it'll come up in a later episode, what Jill is doing. Because like, I don't know. I guess she's going home and like printing articles and like sticking them to people's doors.
Yeah, she must be. But, like, there must be some sort of mini newsletter.
Yeah, I guess people are paying for it, but
there you go. And that's where the episode goes out.
I know.
And it doesn't even have like an outro or anything.
Well, it does on the radio version, not on the album version. Standard stuff, Andrew.
My bad.
Is it your first time listening to Odyssey?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I think
I'm
we're
glad
going to fire you from the
here.
podcast.
Yeah, not much. Never mind.
But yeah, that's the episode.
Closing thoughts?
I'm just gonna read off a couple of quotes that I put down because they're funny that I didn't get to.
Go for it. Yeah.
Get to do it. A conversation between Ryan and Alice where Ryan says, this was our chance to see our role models in action. Instead, it was as exciting as sharpening pencils. And Alice is like, you got to sharpen pencils?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Which is really, really funny. And then when Alice pulls Pete over the first time, he's like, who made up these laws? The squirrels?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and then Nelson makes a joke earlier when they're talking about like where did they start, and he's like, I think we should, if we're gonna emulate the founding fathers, we need white wigs and feather pens. Yes. And they're like, no, we don't need that. And he's like, I mean, it could be a good photo opportunity if we want to make a coffee table book, which is a very unique thing.
Yes. But the thing is, I don't think it's a bit.
No, I think he's being serious.
And that's that's gonna be a theme throughout these episodes of like Nelson is a little bit on the outs with this group.
Yeah.
Everyone else seems to kind of know.
Like they
they're way more socially aware than he is.
Yeah.
Except for maybe Alice, but everyone's kind of okay with Alice.
Yeah.
I don't know. Nelson's timid.
Yeah, he's a little awkward.
But
he's in middle school.
Which is why the scientific experiments on live subject slide is so funny.
Yeah.
But
it's real good. Yeah, it's delightful. I love this 3-parter. I think it's so good. I've listened to it so many times. Like,
yeah, I did too.
And it's such a nice break
because it's always available. Like those episodes that were released on the podcast versus the ones on Wits End Online.
Yeah,
like were really great because you could go back and listen to them whenever,
anytime you want.
Yeah,
on demand.
Even now,
the OA Club.
Yeah.
I need to look into that, honestly. I want to try and get it again.
We should figure it out again.
Well, do you want to go splitsies on an account? $5 a month. That's not bad.
Not bad.
Username can be WadFam Chalkpod.
You plugging anything this week, Andrew?
Does going to nursing school count? Can I plug that?
Sure.
As of recording this, I did my first week in nursing school, so there you go. That's what's going on in my life.
It's exciting stuff right there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. Like they're throwing me in the deep end. Like it's not just classes. Like I have to like do blood pressures, pulses, injections, that sort of thing. Like very soon. Very, very soon.
Yeah.
I have to know how to do a lot of things. I have a stethoscope. I wear scrubs. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. He's fancy. You need to
I'm a fancy doctor person now.
Yeah.
What about you?
On my end, I just, because it's been a while since we've talked about this, I'm just going to plug my Redbox reviews on Instagram again. Also Twitter and Tumblr, but those ones just auto post, so
yeah.
I don't really keep tabs on that. But at Redbox Reviews on Instagram is just a collection. They come out kind of once a week of funny reviews that I find that were left really on movies on Redbox's website under the premise of the people who leave reviews on Redbox are just ridiculous.
They're bonkers.
So like let's throw some of that stuff up on the internet. And it's something that I really have fun creating. It's fairly low effort, and it's just like it's more for me than anyone else.
Well, it's a very amusing premise. So I think it's cool.
So yeah, I think I've talked about it before, but it's been a while. So I'll link that below, and you can go.
Do we have any new Apple reviews or anything like that?
Oh
we
yeah,
haven't done that.
Yeah, no, we do. We do have one new review, which I will be reading.
Oh, awesome! Also, thanks for the 2 people that mentioned us on Twitter.
It was one person on Twitter, one person on Reddit.
On Reddit. Yeah, I mean, y'all get on the Adventures in Odyssey subreddit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, actually, that's a good point. Adventures in Odyssey subreddit is a good place to be.
Yeah.
Especially
if you like our content and you want similar stuff like that, or you want to have conversations. We're active on there, so
yeah.
you
I
post.
check it pretty often.
Yeah.
But yeah, so fairly recently we got our first 4-star review from user Heavy Kevane. Heavy Kevane.
Let's get it. 4 stars. What do they knock us for?
So this is interesting. Thus podcast is okay. They spend way too long, and their episodes are always changing order. But other than that, they're good. So shout outs
episodes are too long. Changing order?
I don't know. Maybe that means that we don't cover every episode in order.
Oh,
which correct?
Yes, we don't.
But yeah, I appreciate you, Heavy Kevane.
Yeah, thank you
for leaving us a 4-star review.
That's 80%. That's real good.
Yeah, no, I'll take it. That is more than a passing grade.
Heck yeah.
And yeah, I'm
As
glad.
I mentioned.
I'm glad that our podcast is interesting.
Thank you.
All right.
We'll see you back next week for Kidsboro Part 2.
Yeah. Bye guys.
WadFam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at WadFamChalkPod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. Episode 44, Kidsboro, Part 1, was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Acebo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us next time for more of the WadFam Chalk Pod.